So Vice President Kamala Harris is historically unpopular, and that is in large part mostly her fault because she is, first of all, a neoliberal corporate sellout, and she's a terrible liar, can't even do the window dressing, and just comes off as an incompetent and just totally just not there at all and just can't talk at all. And of course, with President Biden, when he can't talk, you can just say, "Oh, cognitive decline and stutter." Yeah, and you can give him those excuses. But with Kamala Harris, you can't really give her those same excuses. So that just means Kamala Harris is even more incompetent and awful. And she manages to be more unpopular than President Biden. And my point is, what did you expect? What did you expect? You saw all that in the Democratic primary where she was just talking about Twitter bans and just completely just going off the rails and just not focused at all on any policy. And of course, her record as prosecutor, I'd argue, is just as bad as President Biden's record in the Senate. Of course, Kamala Harris literally keeping an innocent man in jail, even when he was ordered to be released. Kamala Harris jailing countless parents for child truancy. Kamala Harris jailing multiple people for drug violations when she herself has laughed and admitted to having smoked stuff in the past. And so no one likes Kamala Harris because she's so open and flagrant about her corporate sellout style. And Kamala Harris has literally 3 fans. She has 3 fans on the planet. And those 3 fans are Amber Heard, Sunny Hostin, and Charlemagne the God. And of course, everyone loves to give Charlemagne the God so much credit because, he pressed Kamala Harris in an interview once. But the point is, Charlemagne was endlessly supportive of Kamala Harris during the Democratic primary, and he was endlessly pushing for her, endlessly endorsing her, and Charlemagne was also smearing Bernie Sanders, if you remember, and Charlemagne was also endlessly pushing for Kamala Harris to become vice president. And while Charlemagne would pretend he had a problem with Joe Biden's policies and he would criticize Joe Biden's policies, Kamala Harris having those exact same policies, Charlemagne would not have a problem with that, and then he's just like, "Oh, she did what she could," and it was just a bunch of malarkey. And Charlemagne I think it's just either disingenuous, or there are many issues with him. But the point is, if President Biden had gone with a different vice president, if President Biden had chosen Val Demings, or Representative Val Demings, or Governor Gretchen Whitmer, or Stacey Abrams, or Ambassador Susan Rice, or Senator Tammy Duckworth, or Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, former mayor, or Senator Elizabeth Warren, would anything have been different? And the short answer is yes. Long answer is it kind of depends, because Gretchen Whitmer is a standard neoliberal corporate Democrat. So she would have just been in lockstep with all of Joe Biden's policies, and a potential Vice President Whitmer would have been historically unpopular as well, maybe less unpopular than Kamala Harris, but still historically unpopular, so it would not have changed anything. Val Demings, I don't know much about, so I can't really say for sure. Stacey Abrams, I think there would certainly have been more progress in terms of voting legislation, and perhaps there would have been a massive voting rights reform with Stacey Abrams, and Stacey Abrams could have just done some tremendous things. Maybe she could have pushed President Biden to take more actions on voting rights and maybe end gerrymandering and reform the system. And of course, I doubt that Abrams and Biden would have gotten rid of money in politics, but they would have gotten very far with voting rights. Now, I don't know much about Keisha Lance Bottoms. Seems to be an excellent speaker and all that, but I don't know about her actual policy, so we'll leave that there. Of course, she would have been perceived as more competent than Kamala Harris because Keisha Lance Bottoms can actually speak. Now, as for Susan Rice and Tammy Duckworth, oh boy, that would be terrible, because Susan Rice and Tammy Duckworth being vice president, that would be incredibly disastrous for foreign policy, because President Biden, he did one good thing when he got out of Afghanistan, when he withdrew the military from Afghanistan, but everyone in the military-industrial complex was hounding him and just screaming at him. And of course, he told them all to be quiet, and he just did it anyway. And that's a good thing. Of course, the sanctions that came on Afghanistan, the way President Biden is sanctioning Afghanistan is absolutely horrible, and he shouldn't be doing that. But the point is, withdrawing from Afghanistan was a wonderful thing. But if Tammy Duckworth or Susan Rice were vice president, they would have opposed that so much, and I think they would have tried to sabotage it. Because the point is, Tammy Duckworth is incredibly hawkish and has endlessly argued against withdrawing from war. Susan Rice was literally Barack Obama's national security advisor, and Barack Obama was basically George W. Bush on foreign policy. So Susan Rice, and under Susan Rice being a national security advisor, Obama administration stayed in Afghanistan. So the point is, Susan Rice and Tammy Duckworth, if they were vice president, they might have been, I'm not sure if they could have talked President Biden out of withdrawing from Afghanistan, but they might have tried to sabotage it a lot. So, yep, that would have been horrible. Now, in terms of other things, Tammy Duckworth and Susan Rice, I don't know much else about them other than their hawkish foreign policy, so I'm not sure. I doubt that they would have been too popular. Now, Elizabeth Warren, she, when the Afghanistan withdrawal happened, she did support it, so I think that she would have been fine with that and gone along with President Biden on that. Now, she's constantly been pushing for student debt elimination, so forgiving student debt. So she would have she might have been able to pressure, because we know that Elizabeth Warren has pressured Hillary Clinton into doing things in the past. So maybe if she could pressure Hillary Clinton, maybe Elizabeth Warren would have had the ability to pressure President Biden, and she might have gotten him to eliminate student loan debt with an executive order. She might have also gotten him to set up abortion clinics on federal land, and she might have gotten him to codify Roe v. Wade. So Elizabeth Warren would probably have the most net positive effect, and she would be, I think, maybe she wouldn't be such a popular vice president, or maybe she would. Who knows? It's hard to tell. But she would have certainly pushed President Biden in a more better direction. And if Elizabeth Warren were vice president and she was making President Biden forgive student loans and also set up abortion clinics on federal land, if she were able to do that and push him in that way, then not only would she be popular, President Biden would also be popular. So, yep, maybe his prospects wouldn't look so terrible. And maybe Elizabeth Warren would be in a good standing to run in 2024 if that were the case. But all things being said and done, a lot of President Biden's choices for vice president were horrible, with a handful of exceptions. And no matter who he would have chosen, I think President Biden would have still defeated Donald Trump in the 2020 election, because it was a swing election against Donald Trump. So the point is, whoever would have been chosen would have, yes, looked more competent than Kamala Harris, but in some areas could have been worse or better.